Welcome to another episode of Meet the Authors. I have a very special guest with me today. Me and her go way back. When I say way back, we go way back. We even co authored a book together. But today we're going to talk about her book, which is Pod Chicks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so her name is Audrey Bell Kearney. So I'm going to introduce you to her. Audrey, how are you doing today?
Hey Adele, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing well in yourself.
I'm doing fantastic. I know we've done a lot of things together, but I really want to talk about your new book. Has it been released yet?
It's out. It came out in September.
It came out in September. And I know you've been doing podcasting for a long time, so to write a book is like about it, you know, people need to know about your book. So, before we start talking about your book or diving into your book, let's tell our listening audience about who Audrey Bell Kearney is.
It's so funny that you brought up the fact that we co-authored that book. I was in a meeting last week and I was talking about the cookbook last Monday, to be as a matter of fact. And I was talking about the first book we wrote. And I don't know if you remember this, but this was so funny. And I was telling them the story. I said we wrote the book, and
Mhm.
we didn't even want to put our real names on the book, so we put like Amanda Rochelle and Nikki Jordan and Dominique Pierre. And so the lady said to me, why did you not want to put your own name? I said, we thought it was kind of risque, so we didn't want to put our names on the book. And I remember you said, your pastor said, listen, people in the church need to know this stuff too. You remember that?
Right. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
I told that story just last Monday, but this being an author has been a eye-opening journey for me. We started back. Let me tell y'all something. We started self-publishing back there when there was only one book on the market about self-publishing. It was, I'm never going to forget. It was Dan Pointer. He had the
Mhm.
only book on the market, a little bitty green book talking about
Right.
self-publishing. There were no courses and there were no meetup groups and no webinars. It was one book by Dan
That
Pointer.
point.
And it
Yes.
was so funny because I saw him last week on something, and I said to myself, "Oh my God, he's still alive!" Because I haven't seen anything with him in years.
Yes.
Him and what was the guy named who wrote 100 1001 Ways to Market Your Book was another guy. I can't think his
Oh,
name.
I know who you're talking about, but I can't think of his name either, but I do know who you're talking about.
Right, it was the two of them guys. So those were the
Mhm.
two guys, and that really dates us ago. That's way back in 1998.
You know, you're right because I'm always saying I don't want to date myself. And I said that today in the class that I was teaching, and the gentleman looked at me, he said, don't feel bad about it because you look good for your age. I
That's
was
right.
like, okay, thank you.
That's right. People tell me that all the time. Every time I tell them, I'm like, listen, I got a millennial. They like a millennial. How old are you? Like, you would
Mm,
not
I
believe it.
believe it.
But
Right,
God has
right.
been good. They say black don't crack.
You're right about that.
That's right. So anyway, my journey started off way back in '97. I don't know if you remember that. We had an office. Remember that? We had the
Mhm.
office over in East Orange. So I started out as an entrepreneur in '97. And my first company was called Changing Directions. And my goal was to work with young people who were coming out of high school and college because back then, I don't even think they do this now, but back then, nobody was telling you what to do once you got out of high school. And
Right.
I went to college and got a ton of credit cards and wound up having to file bankruptcy at 24 because nobody told me anything, didn't know how to balance a checkbook and none of that stuff. So I figured I would start this company called Changing Directions. And that was my start into entrepreneur as an entrepreneur. But I realized that my I call it my real business. My real business came when I launched a doll company because that literally took me down a road of learning that I'll never forget and I'm so grateful for. And so for those of you who don't know me, I am the inventor of the first plus size fashion doll. And that doll was born in 1999. I call it my real business because I learned about investing because I was looking for investors to invest in this company. I learned about marketing. I learned how to build websites with no money. I learned how to do PR because we didn't have any money. And so that was my journey into, I call it real entrepreneurship. And I've been an entrepreneur now for about almost 23 years. So that takes me way back. Next year be 23 years, 20 years full time, 21 years full time next year.
Well, Audrey, I'm going to go a little further back because I think it's a little bit more than that. because I remember your story talking about how you used to deliver newspapers just so you could keep your business alive.
I did that. I started doing that when I launched the dog company. So I did that. So what happened was in 1999, June, it was June 19th. I'm never going to forget it. It was June 1999. I was working at Verizon. I had just got my license to be a licensed insurance agent. And I remember trying to recruit Georgette to be an agent with me. And we were at the opportunity meeting, sitting in the back of the room, and I was telling her about this idea for this dog. And that was
Mhm.
in June. But what happened was Verizon went on strike. That was like June 14th, 1999. Verizon went on strike, and I never went back after that. So I had to make a living some kind of way. So I took a paper route.
Okay.
I had my daughter. I was a single parent at the time. And I was crazy. I tell people all the time, don't do this. I was young and crazy. Quit my job when they went on strike. I didn't go back, and I took a paper route. No money in the bank, no benefits, no nothing. Just quit. Just I'm gonna do this business because I'm gonna be rich. That was my thing. And that's when I took the paper route. And people thought I had lost my mind. I used to joke about it, like, yeah, y'all laughing at me. I said, but every Sunday y'all get the Sunday Star Ledger for free, because I would
Yeah.
give my friends the Star Ledger for free on Sunday, because that was the biggest paper during the week, that Sunday, right? So
Right.
that's when I got my paper route, and then I went back and took a job right after that. My best friend, one of my best friends, was having a baby, and she had to go out on maternity leave, and I went and spent about I think I spent about 6 months working at Novartis Pharmaceutical, filling in for her. And
Mhm.
so I worked at Novartis, but the whole time I was there, I was working on my doll company, and everything was rolling along really well. And then, and at the end of '99, the dolls were actually born. So we actually got our first prototypes back from Hong Kong and everything. Didn't know what we were doing, just jumped out there on faith and did that thing.
But that's okay. Everything is a learning experience. So
Hmm.
that was a learning experience for you
Yep.
and Georgette. Um, but look at you now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look how far you came. And
Yeah.
so, um, I believe truly that our listening audience need to know about, your new book. Not only that, you've got so many people who want to be authors, they want to write. And, when I think about that, that's one of the reasons why this podcast has been put into place because meet the authors. So many authors are out there that people don't even know about. They don't know about their book. They
Hmm.
don't know what they're missing out on. So I'm so happy to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
So Audrey, tell us a little bit about your latest book.
So I wrote the book. I've been podcasting since about 2008. I've been in media for 16 years, almost 17 years now, and I've been podcasting since about 2008. So it's so funny because it's Christmas time. It's so funny that we're doing this interview right now because last year Christmas time, you know, I'm not a like I like shopping for clothes and shoes, but I wanted to do that myself. So every year they don't know what to get me for Christmas. So I remember before, I'm just telling y'all the stories to give you kind of backdrop of how I got to the book. But every year, it's always like, what do you want for Christmas? And I'm a gadget girl, so I'm like, get me a camera, get me a computer, get me a microphone. That's me. But last year I said, hey, listen, I want a trip to Podfest. That's what I want. I want my airline, I want the hotel, everything paid. And that's what I got for Christmas. I got an early Christmas. Podfest wasn't until March, but I knew what I wanted. Like, don't waste money on anything. I got enough gadgets this year. So this is what I want. So for Christmas, I asked for a trip to Podfest. And that's what I got. So I went to Podfest because I was like, you know what? I've been kind of playing around with podcasting for a minute now. I need to go ahead and turn this thing into something real. And when I went to Podfest, it was an eye-opening experience. I had no idea how far podcasting had come because when I was on podcasting, I was at a meeting this week, and I was talking about Blog Talk Radio, and they were like, "Blog Talk, what is that?" It was hilarious. Blog Talk was one of the first platforms out there to do podcasting, and so I had to
Exactly.
explain what that was. And but we used to podcast on Blog Talk, and I had no idea how far along this industry has progressed. But here's the
Mhm.
thing, Adele. Even though it has come a long way, it still has a lot of growth left in it because now mainstream media is taking notice and saying, hey, wait a minute, there's something to this podcasting thing. They have these dedicated, kind of like YouTube when it first started out. So to
Right.
put that in perspective, let me just give you some stats real quick. So there are about a half a billion YouTube channels. That's a billion, that's what it be. There
Mhm.
are only about 700,000 podcasts. And out of that, um, only about 125,000 are active. Okay.
Okay.
So that's I mean, what did I say? I said that's over a billion. I'm sorry, it was a billion. It's a billion YouTube channels out there. It's only 700,000 podcasts. So there's still a lot of room to grow. And out of all of those podcasts, there's only about 125,000 that are active. So we still have a lot of room to grow as podcasters, right? So I
Right.
went to Podfest. I'm talking to all these amazing people. And I'm kind of loosely throwing the name Pod Chicks around because once again, Georgette and I was in at Podfest. And every time I would meet somebody, we were together. I was like, yeah, we the Pod Chicks, right? So I'm just kind of playing, like, we the Pod Chicks. And every time I would say it, people were like, oh, that's a nice name. And they kept
Mhm.
saying that. And I was like, wait a minute, that is a catchy name. Let me just stop for a second. And I remember being in the hallway, sitting in a chair, and they was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, registering this Pod Chick's name on GoDaddy. That's what I said. And so, because I said to myself, if everybody keep thinking it's nice, somebody gonna go register it after a while. So I registered the name Pod Chicks.
Mhm.
And when I came home, I said, okay, now I got this cute name. What am I gonna do with it? So the first thing I'm always telling people, you should write a book. I tell them that
Mhm.
all the time. I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna write a book, and that's what I did. So I wrote a book called Pod Chicks, and the stories from 14 women who have started podcasting. And in the back of the book, it tells you how you can become a podcaster too. And but what happened was that the book has morphed into more than just a book at this point. So now it's a whole membership called Pod Chicks. So I have a membership called Pod Chicks. It's at podchicks.com. And it's for any woman who is serious about learning how to leverage the power of podcasting. And because there are a lot of free groups out there, Um, and I like those groups. The problem I have with those groups is that it's so much content moves in the group that you
Mhm.
get lost. Like you can go there and post something now, and 5 hours later it's gone. So you got to go digging for it. But with my membership, you get me on a monthly call. Like our monthly call is tomorrow. Ask me any questions. I'm available pretty much 24/7 via email. And also you get the camaraderie of other podcasters, other women who podcast, and you get to do collaborative ventures and things like that because um, that's important. Like whenever you're doing something in business, you need to have collaborative partners. You need to have a sounding board that you can go to. You need to have somebody because entrepreneurship is lonely,
Yes, it is. Yes, it
you
is.
know.
Not everybody's out there trying to be a business person.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I had to do. I just finished teaching a class today about being an entrepreneur. And you're right. There's a lot of people who are by themselves.
Yep.
And so I tell entrepreneurs, get yourself a team. It doesn't mean that they have to be your business partner, but they're a team of people that you can now bounce things off of.
Right.
And when I said that, it reminded me of um, how the Couple to Romance came about because
Mhm.
we had a mastermind group.
Yeah, the mastermind.
And so out of that mastermind, Couple to Romance was birthed.
I was just talking to this young lady. She just opened up a co-working space here, and I was telling her, I said, "Listen, I said we used to mastermind every Sunday at 2:30. I said it
Hmm.
was six of us. We all had about our own separate businesses. I said, but we would come together and we would bring snacks and we would sit down and we would mastermind about what's going on in your business, and we would go around the table see how we could help each other. I said, but this one particular Sunday, the three of us sat back down and was like, we need to make some money." And I said,
Hmm.
that's how the cookbook to romance was born because it was like, well, how do we make money? And we like sex sales, and that's how
Hmm.
that book was born. So
Exactly.
she thought that was a really good idea. And I said to her, every year, at the beginning of every year, I read Think and Go Rich Again because I feel like it's such a powerful book. So that's kind of how I jumped my year off reading Think and Grow Rich because I love that book. I think it's a great book. It's a great motivator. And for anybody out there who's thinking about doing anything, writing a book, starting a podcast, you're going to want to surround yourself with people, like-minded people. And I know you probably, if you're an entrepreneur, I'm sure you've heard that phrase before. Surround yourself with like-minded people. Now, here's the thing, though, Adele.
Hmm.
You need to surround yourself with like-minded people, but you also need to surround yourself with people who are moving because you could be
Exactly.
around like-minded people who are not moving. They're kind of stuck. And
Yeah,
so if they're stuck and you're around them, chances are you're going to be stuck as well. So you want to be around
exactly.
people who are not just like-minded, but people who are moving in the direction in which you want to go up. let's hope that's where you want to go up, because that's where I'm trying to get to.
That's where everybody should be trying to get to.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when I talk to small businesses, I'm said, don't consider yourself as being small all the time, because when you try to be the be all to your business, nothing happens because you
Okay.
stress yourself out. Get a team, get people. I mean, people volunteer all day long if they know you starting a business.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you need that. I mean, are you going to answer all those emails? I don't like answering all those emails, but having an intern helps. I don't have to answer the emails. I let the intern do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of times, a lot of things, especially the tedious stuff that you may not want to do, you can get an intern or a co-op student to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm coming back around, Audrey, because we
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
talk about your book.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Okay, show our listening audience your book.
So here's the book, guys. That's the book. It's called Pod Chicks. And so this book is really, so I met these amazing women, right? I met some women who had, let me tell you something. If there's something you want to start a podcast on, start it. There was one young lady, she's in the book. Well, two. One her podcast is called You Want to Do What? That's the name of her podcast. You Want to
Wow.
Do What? And it was all about just talking to people about what they wanted to do. I was like, really? Like, when you think about podcasts, it's like we think about interviewing and asking all these. Her thing was simply like, what you want? You want to do what? And that was the name of her podcast. I thought that was very, very cool.
I like that
Right.
because now it makes you think. You want to
Yeah.
do what?
You want to do what? And I was like, that is so cute. Cute. But then there's another young lady, she's in the book, her name is Emily. Her podcast is called The Story Behind. So let's say, for instance, this chapstick, right? What's the
Mm-hmm.
story behind this chapstick? And that's all her
Mm.
podcast is about, the story behind stuff that she just wants to talk about. So when I met her in Florida at Podfest, she was just about to do the story behind how straws was made, like a drinking
Mm.
straw. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, what? So it's like things like that. So some of the women in the book is just women who have started podcasting about um things that they were passionate about, like knitting, photography. There's a 10-year-old in my book. Her name is Izzy. She has her own podcast. She was at
Mm.
podcast. So the platform is open to them, and I think that people I think a lot of people kind of sleeping on podcasting somewhat because they think it's just one of those things like Facebook Live, right?
Right.
Even with that, those are powerful tools that as entrepreneurs we should be utilizing. Now, here's the thing: I know we can't do all of them because if you could, you'd just be overwhelmed and burned out. But pick one. I could tell you right now, video is number one, and podcasting is number two, and then everything else just kind of falls second and third and behind it. So I wrote the book because I was inspired by all the women that I met in
Mm-hmm.
Florida. I wanted to tell their stories. I wanted to tell my stories, and I wanted to give people a basic blueprint on what they needed to do to start their own podcast. So they
Wow.
can do that, or they can take one of my trainings or whatever. But if you buy the book, it's going to walk you step by step through what you got to do to launch the podcast. And so that was the inspiration for the book. I'm always writing a book. Like I'm about to write another book. So the book I'm about to finish up, I'm about to write
Mm-hmm.
now, was originally the book I was going to start, and it was called "You Got Something to Say."
Wow.
And it was about podcasting. So I got the cover done, everything was ready to go, and then I wrote Pod Chicks instead. But I realized even from March until now, I have learned so much more in this industry, and I've
Mm-hmm.
accomplished so much more in this industry. So you got something to say is going to be part two to Pod Chicks.
Oh, wow. Well, before I finish up, because you got my mind going, but that's what we do as entrepreneurs. Our mind just go all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But before I finish up this podcast with you, I want you to tell our listening audience how they can get a copy of your book, be part of your team, because like you said, it's an industry that's wide open right now. And so people need to know about that. And then I want to ask you some questions about publishing. So
Okay.
first of all, tell us how we can get a copy of your book.
So the book is available. You can go to shop.podchicks, that's podchix.com, shop.podchicks.com. You'll see the book there. You'll see t-shirts and all that good stuff there as well. Also, I am doing I'm doing workshops. So if you want to take one of my workshops, go over to podchicks.com and just become a member there. And the workshops for our members are free. And I have if you're in the Metro Atlanta area, I'm doing a podcast called Podcast Startup Live. It's a live 5 hour hands-on
Mm,
workshop.
wow.
Here's the reason behind that, Adele, because a lot of people have paid me a lot of money and still have not launched their podcast, which is sad.
Mm,
And I said, you know what? I need them to launch. I need to help people launch. So my thing was to host a live workshop, hands-on, and you're gonna come out with your first 3 episodes. And I know that's going to help somebody launch. Like when you leave that class, not only will you have everything you need to know to launch, you're going to physically have your first 3 episodes recorded because we're going to
wow.
record them. We're going to record you while you're there, but I'm only working with 12 people because I can't. So right now, I only got 11 spots left. Someone already paid, and I just talked about this like early this week, and someone paid already on Monday, I think it was. But podcast startup live dot live podcast startup dot live. So if you want to get in that class, it's going to be December the 21st. So but I don't know, this is this going to air in time? This may not air in time, but it's going
This
to come
may
around
not
soon.
air. You
But just keep the website because I'm going to try to do this every month because I'm only working with 12 people at a time or every other month. So you may miss December, but you may get it in January or February.
mm,
Okay.
mm.
So
It's funny because I'm thinking, okay, my brain is going here. I'm like, oh, I need to be in your class.
yeah.
So I don't know when I'll sign up for it, but I'm gonna sign up for it. If I know I'm gonna have to fly to Georgia because I'm here in Texas, but that's okay. I'll
And
come stay with you, or I mean, you or Georgette.
yep, yep. Because I think for a lot of people, like I have people under the Pod Chicks community right now. They paid me, and I said to
Mhm.
myself, they're stuck, and I don't know why they're stuck because they won't talk. Like they're not talking like, and they pay like, okay, so you paid me, but you're still not moving forward. And I talked to a lot of people here in the metro area because I'm talking so much now about podcasts everywhere. Like I was just on a radio show just what was it, Thursday, I think it was, talking about
Mhm.
podcasting. And but I'm everywhere talking about podcasts. I'm even speaking at Podfest this year coming up in March about podcasts. I'm speaking on the cruise about podcasting. I'm everywhere talking about podcasting these days, but I find that people still need you to hold a lot of people still need you to hold their hands. And a lot of people are launching podcasts, they still don't understand the power. Like everybody should have their podcast on Alexa. Everybody. Like if Alexa is everywhere, just
Right.
look everywhere. Like people should be. If you go right now to Alexa and install the Good Morning Gwinnett skill, you can and say, "Hey Alexa, open Good Morning Gwinnett," and guess who you're gonna hear? Me, because I'm on Alexa. So I feel like there's a lot of opportunities for you to grow your business. And here's the thing: you don't have to interview a soul. Get on there and talk about how smart you know about what you're doing. Right? If you are a business coach, put out a tip every freaking day. Right? 5 seconds. Put your tip out. Put the app on Alexa, and then tell people to go and listen to you on Alexa. And when they want more information about how they can work with you, send them to your website. Right?
Exactly.
Fire TV,
Exactly.
same thing. Roku, the same thing. These are platforms that a lot of us are just sleep. Not me, because I got my channels up, but a lot of people are sleeping on. And I just want to be able to help these people understand how to leverage this thing and put everything in place. So in that 5 hours, they're gonna learn a lot of stuff. It's gonna be powerful. It's gonna be a lot of work. But when they leave out of there, at least they have their first 3 episodes done.
Well, I like what you said that it's gonna be hands on.
Yeah, it's hands on.
It's hands on. They're gonna leave out of there with a product. So I mean, and I'm not gonna ask you the price.
You can ask me. It's 247. It's really cheap.
That is really cheap.
I know. I know.
247 is really cheap.
247.
But I will say this, if you're listening to this, Audrey, how can they contact you? Is there a number or do they just have to go to the website?
They can go to the website. It's called podcaststartup.live because it's a live class dot live. Or they can email me, Audrey at podchicks.com, or just give me a call, 678-809-0344. And leave me a message because I
All
promise
right.
it's out.
I know it's like, okay, like somebody asked me today, she said, I don't want to give out my phone number. And I said, use a Google phone.
I don't give out my cell phone number to anybody. And let me tell you this: I'm one of those people. If you don't, If your name is not programmed in my phone and it rings, I'm not answering because I don't give my cell phone number out to anybody.
Right. Just leave a message.
I have a,
I'll
I
call
have a,
you
I have
back.
I don't have a, I got a Google phone number for another part of my company, but this phone number right here is the main office number. So leave me a message and I'll get back to you.
Okay. I want to ask one more question before
Mhm.
we end this podcast today. Did you self-publish or did you go the traditional route?
I've always self-published. And when we started self-publishing, it was just jumping off. Now most people tell you they don't want to do anything else but self-publishing. And the reason being is because you have control of when your book is released, how much you can sell it for, where you want to sell it from. I mean, it sounds good to say, yeah, HarperCollins, published my book. That's a big, maybe down the line I got that aspiration, but I've always self-published. And it's because I'm one of those people who I'm very impatient. So when I get
Mhm.
an idea for something, I need to just go ahead and launch. Like I don't have time to be writing query letters and trying to find an agent and all that. I need to just let it go, and I'll put it out to the universe and drop it, and then I can go on to the next thing. That's how I am. So
Exactly.
I've always self-published. Now, do I have aspirations one day of signing a big, Simon and Schuster deal? Yeah, it's a vanity thing. It's a vanity thing. It's a vanity thing.
It's a vanity thing.
It's a vanity
And
thing.
and I'm glad you said it's a vanity thing
Hmm.
because um my last guest that I was talking to, we were talking about the difference between self-publishing, vanity press, um, and getting with a traditional publisher. So, and who owns the rights to your book if you go with a traditional publisher? And just like you, I've been doing publishing for years. I love it. I wouldn't give it up, but it's so
Mm-mm.
easy to publish now. It's
Hmm.
like, let me be your consultant if you don't
Hmm.
know how to
Right.
get that book published. Because I don't have to go through going to book printers or what have you. I can be your consultant and tell you how to do it. So, Audrey, what are some parting words that you would like to leave to our listening audience?
I know this may sound a little cliche, but understand this, everybody. If you're an entrepreneur and listening to the sound of our voice, content is king, right? And there are a lot of platforms for you to put your content out there, a lot of them. And yes, it can become totally overwhelming, like totally. But I would say to you, if you had to pick between which kind of content you want to create, I would definitely say podcasting. However, if you have the capacity to do self-publishing, if you have the capacity to do video, and here's the thing, Adele, and I'm gonna stop talking because I could talk about this for hours. This video right here that Adele is doing with me, this is three pieces of content. Three. That's a video, that's a podcast, that's a blog post. Now here's the
Hmm.
thing. She's interviewing a whole lot of people. That's four pieces of content. That's a video, that's a podcast, that's a blog post, and that's a book.
Mm,
Four. Content is king, baby, all day long. So
all day long.
choose a content strategy and implement it into your business. We are at the end of 2019, and we get excited about the new year. I'm excited already. That's why I got to clean my office up. Um, but implement that into your business, and make sure it's something that you're passionate about. Now, listen, don't try to go out there and write a book on butterflies. You don't know anything about butterflies. Don't do it because it's going to come across as inauthentic. It really will. But there have been people that did a lot of good research and they've been able to crank out a book. But if you are not passionate about what you do, that comes across in your delivery when someone is interviewing you. The other thing I want to say is if you are not interested in becoming a podcaster, there are other ways to leverage podcasting. Become a guest on a podcast, become a sponsor to a podcast. You can leverage this thing. If you know that you want to be on, I don't know, Pat Flynn podcast, reach out and say, hey, how much is it going to cost me? Because 9 times out of 10, unless you make some major strides in business, you won't be a guest, but you could be a sponsor if your product is something that his audience is going to look at. So you can leverage this
Exactly.
thing. You can leverage podcasting. You don't have to be a podcaster. You don't have to be a guest. You don't even have to be a sponsor. You may want to be a producer. You may want to be an editor. It's an industry, guys. It's not just this thing. It's a straight up industry, and it's getting bigger
Every day.
every
Every
day.
day.
Every
So,
day.
Audrey, I want to say thank you for joining us on Meet the Authors. Um, if
Thank
you're
you.
listening to this, I want to say If you're not an author, but if you know an author, if you want to write a book, because I truly believe there's a book inside of everybody.
Mhm.
If you want to write a book, write that book. Go to AquariusCreationPublishing.com and you'll learn more on how we can help you meet the author. Until next time, make it a wonderful day.